Alright everybody, it's time for the first of 3 reviews. Going to keep them separate because there is a fair amount to talk about with 2 of the units and I just don't want to squeeze into a 30-minute video this time. Not that people don't like long videos sometimes, but yeah, we're just going to kind of keep it a little more separate. And more monetization. Just kidding. Although kind of. So here we have a brand new unit, Cherise, and Cherise is going to be, well, we're going to mark this review with a big old asterisk. I mean, global right now, Jaden seems like pretty much a overpowered unit, which wouldn't be really all that different for global exclusives, originals, whatever you want to label them as. And I feel that Cherise's review is going to be overall with a lot of asterisks and will probably not be so asterisky for global players when she eventually comes out because of foresight, but yeah, let's talk. So 3 move, 2 jump, wind unit, 70 cost that is not limited. So there's no need to rush down this character. Trust Mastery is a 188 HP game crashing piece of equipment that is 6 defense, 5 agility, and 10 accuracy. This is why I have all this information on another screen in case this happens. By the way, the game was live for about 3 minutes before that crash happened. Anyway, I'm really not going to get into it. The big thing is that it does have a self-buff ability that decreases AP consumption by 20% for 3 turns for the unit who has this TMR equipped and activates it. There is 2 uses on it as well. It also gives a 40% dexterity boost. We don't see much in the way of dexterity scaling at all. Bring up the unit again. And I think that is a valuable consideration on this. I mean, range units do get a fairly big bonus from dexterity, you know, ever since the change as compared to what the old bonus was, and just removing a lot of AP consumption is always going to be a good thing. I like this TMR, I like it a lot. It's on a fairly cheap unit, and I mean, maybe you're not willing to spend a ton of resources on getting this unit right away, but eventually down the line, if you do get it, or an upgrader, I think this TMR is very much a good get. As for master ability, she does get a wind attack and HP increase for her allies, which is standard, but you know, we'll mention it anyway. And a increased missile attack penetration by 10 for self and a decrease of AP consumption by 15. If it sounds vaguely like Jaden, that's because a lot of this character is going to sound very, you know, similar to Jaden. With Jaden being a physical unit, or sorry, Jaden being a magical unit and this being a physical unit. And that's okay, that's alright, that's fine kind of thing, but as a 70 cost unit versus a 100 cost unit, the differences are pretty well spoken for. Now, talking about the limit burst for a second, just so we can show it off. It is a long-range, multi-target ability that has the ability to dispel all buffs for targets, dispel haste, dispel physical and magical barriers, and decrease hate for herself by a total of 5. Nice little limit burst, and definitely puts her into the consideration of being just a straight-up 100% improvement on Cowl, who was not kind of originally a gacha unit, but since has sort of become a gacha unit, and still doesn't have a limit burst. It was nice to be seeing if Cowl get a limit burst, just to bring him more in parity with this new character at the very least, since, you know. But let's bring up a mission. This will be fine. We have our wind party here, so we can do a rough kind of acquisition as to what this unit will look like. And here you go. First of all, not really too much HP, not really anything staggering for AP or anything like that. Attack is 1223, which given the fact that she is Odin, I mean, not overly impressive. If we look at, for instance, Glassy here with Ifrit, hitting 15 under attack is very capable. So I'm not, I mean, it's okay, it's okay. I shouldn't be too negative. The interesting thing a little bit is a 22 defense and a 12 spirit, which is overall fairly defensive for a unit that probably can't take that much damage. Does have really good speed, and with this build also really nice dexterity. Good luck, I guess. But overall, nothing overly impressive, but pretty much in line for what I would expect from a 70 cost. This doesn't feel, at least at this point in the review, like she's going to be pushing like a 90 cost unit that's actually masquerading as a 70. So far she feels pretty fair. Looking at resistances, with the current build, she has a lot of magic resistance, a good amount of damage types that she is capable of going up against, and theoretically she should be good against long range. I do wish that she was a little bit, maybe a little more resistance against shooting, but magic is a fine thing. And initial resistances is only like 10% for spear and magic, and 15% for shooting resistance. So she's definitely getting a lot of outside magic resistance, and that still could be dangerous for her. But given her bad matchup, that probably isn't what you really need to do. So let's take a look at her kit. And starting off, we'll start with Gunner. Does have an increase in missile attack and range for herself, as well as increase or being able to deal blind, piercing damage, immobilize, critical rate, critical damage, and has a knockback with auto restore. Overall, I didn't get any kind of chaining through this. Gunner seems like a good potential secondary, but not incredible. As for Strider, Strider does give her the chance to inflict slow. She can increase her own attack and spirit of herself and allies, which potentially, shores her up as being a little bit more of a brawly unit, but I don't think she necessarily has the HP to really do that. With her last two abilities, she can decrease attack and magic, and she can decrease healing, but the really interesting thing with her healing ability is she can also inflict frostbite. Frostbite is not a bad skill, or status effect, I should say, on not a bad skill. So she does have a little bit of chaining through Strider, and she does have some nasty status effects through both of her secondary options, which are pretty good overall. Not great, but pretty good. Now, Hunter itself did recently get the buff, and as by the kind of testing with Eliza a little bit, yeah, Eliza's even stronger. So Eliza getting a buff bodes well for this character also being strong. Into the subpart of her Hunter kit, she has the accuracy increase by 60 for 3 turns, plus a range increase. Not a bad buff if you're going up against evasion-based characters, and there are a fair amount of evasion characters, both in Tower as well as potentially in Arena, especially because we don't know what's coming quite next. But yeah, she also can increase her defense penetration by 50 for this cast, increase missile attack resistance penetration by 50, and deal damage, so kind of a high-powered damage to a single target. Again, not crazy, but fairly nice to have in certain situations. Now, the main part of her kit is effectively what you expect from Hunter. She has the Berserk status effect, which can be very useful in certain matchups. And I do want to talk a little bit more about come back to the Berserk status effect in a second. Is the increase attack and agility, as well as the chance that a counterattack does not work. Where is it? Right there. This also gets improved into her EX, which also gives a a restore of 20 AP for herself, which isn't bad. I mean, you're using 26 AP, you're getting AP, and you're restoring a fair amount of AP as well. It would be pretty useful and decreases the likelihood that she'll be spells dependent. Is a decrease of CT that will also decrease range on targets as well as missile attack. So a sort of, this ability acts as kind of a really nice counter to other ranged units. We'll come back to ranged units as well. And from there, her big ability that doesn't have an incredible range, but does deal a good amount of damage, and is a triple hit ability, which is always nice for chaining. Wind does have really good chaining abilities, So this is super, super good here. Also gets a boost if Haste or Berserk are on the targets and decreases 20 AP if she gets a critical hit. Her last ability is her Job of 5, which decreases missile resistance for 25 turns, no chance of a counter, and deals damage. Overall, her kit feels nice. It does have a couple of really good AoEs that can kind of shore up against other ranged units, which gives her, you know, pretty nice amount of say in how a match could go if it's all ranged. That being said, while Wind has gotten a lot from, for instance, the Dark Tetra Selfie card and whatnot, so many Wind Vision cards are still limited time or very expensive, which limits a little bit of what you are offensively capable. And the other thing is that in terms of ranged units, this isn't particularly the group I'm thinking is going to be really good with ranged units. That's Ice, and Ice is a tough matchup. Now you could theoretically pair Cherise as well as another wind-based unit, I don't know, maybe Sadali or Lucia or just a bunch of other characters in with a Mont, since there is a Wind Fire Vision card. There isn't a super amount, and it still may not be enough because Water and Ice could be a potent combo as well. It could kind of push back against it. I mean, overall, like, if you're going to get into a range fight right now on JP, it's probably going to be against Ice, and Cherise is not going to last against it. Eliza has proven that she is more than capable of murdering multiple units at long range, especially if it's just that kind of a map that gives an advantage to it. But I really do like Cherise in principle, and I think that she's generally pretty strong, especially for a limited cost unit, and we cannot discount the fact that she is a limited cost unit. But at the same time, this is a unit that I'm not incredibly excited for, especially with the announcement of a live stream and a huge collaboration. Huge collaborations are sometimes massive power outliers that really change what happens in the game. For JP recently, I mean, Orlando, Agrius, and Ramzo were all really good in old unit improvements. So in the case that we are getting something like FF7, that could be pretty big power spike there. On the other hand, if it is a brand new one, the last time we saw Lightning and Snow, who were incredibly powerful units, or dare I mention, even go further back and talk about Celise or Joker. There is a lot of good collaboration units, and this unit, being that she's a permanent addition to the pool, regardless of how nice it is to have low-cost units, probably just doesn't fit most people's planning or self-budgets. But hey, let's do a little bit of testing. Let's figure it out on this map. We're going to do just a little bit of tests, and this is an initial run because I am using a friend unit, because I personally, I'll say this because this is definitely my feelings for this unit. This feels just TBD. Like, Global this week ended up getting a really good vision card at the same time as a really good wind range unit, and that made it way more probable to say, yeah, Jaden is a absolute solid recommendation. Slight spoiler for the next video. But I mean, here we are sitting with a unit where we don't know what the vision card is coming next week, and there's a collaboration that's about to be announced that will also be starting next week, with a new 100 cost unit potentially also coming at the beginning of September, if not the second week of the collaboration. We'll see. And with the rumor, just so many rumors and possibilities swirling about what a huge collaboration could possibly be, this really does affect this review video, because there's a good chance that we aren't going to see a vision card for this unit next week. Or if it is, it's going to be really swept under the rug and therefore might not be good. Or worse yet, if we see a collaboration with a, you know, kind of really good wind unit as well, then it's going to be another limited wind card. There's just so much here that I want to recommend Cherise for, because I remember the last time a new hunter came to the game at a slightly lower cost. Eliza was 90 cost, which, you know, isn't as low cost, obviously, as what we are looking at here. But I remember saying at the time, wow, I think that Eliza was going to be really, really good. And she ended up being the really start of a turning point for Ice besides Paris. And that's noteworthy. That is absolutely noteworthy as to how powerful a lower cost unit can be sometimes. And I'm personally being very, very conservative about this because collaboration. It does feel like there could be a really huge collaboration in the future that would be very, very powerful. So there we also got a little bit of a interesting thing there, which was her comparability. So let's just bring up that for a second. Also 7,000 HP in battle, but that still feels pretty low. Eliza and Alaya have, for instance, no problem hitting the damage limit if we're looking. And on JP, there is a good number of ice teams that would love to feast upon Wind Elemental. But her counter ability is a chance to counter all damage. It's an incredibly long range, and it decreases wind resistance and missile target resistance. So pretty good little counter. It's not a preemptive counter, but I do think it is very strong. Here, just taking a look at unbuffed, what her AP costs are, which look very, very reasonable. We're also just looking in here and seeing how much damage we can do. About 7,000 to 8,000 looks to be roughly what we're doing. And this ability with her wide AoE is a little bit less powerful, but still dishy relatively. So let's, I mean, we could do the hate down. I think I'm going to do a buff. Probably not this one. This is the AP down. You know what? Let's do the dexterity TMR buff, because there are 1 chance, so we kind of want to see it. Well, we got 2 limit bursts anyway, so let's just do that. But even Cherise does feel a little bit slow on this team, so just taking a look at what we got for damage in place. So you can get an idea for how much. If you need to, definitely just rewind and check the numbers, but you can see that we are dealing way closer to the damage cap with a little buffs and dealing roughly a fairly decent percentage above what we were doing before, which, you know, feels pretty nice. Here's the AP generation one. We're going to grade this out a little bit more because I really do want to test her at her full capabilities, at her best. And we're just going to make sure that we are keeping haste going on her. Maybe just handle some of the slightly weaker units. Not that we're under really all that much pressure, but anyway. Alright, so let's get in here. Let's get stuck in here. So here is her limit burst. Let's run that at regular speed, which is slower than molasses in January, but here we go. Oh wait, I forgot to turn off animations. Ah, it's fine. We already saw it. I'll fix that right away here. We casted haste, but it's too slow. Options. My bad. I did do a new BlueStacks install and it kind of crashed my computer, so I went back to the original version, and that's just what we're kind of doing today. All right, so we'll get a few other animations, but we've seen the limit burst one, so let's see something else. Here you can kind of get an idea for how much damage we're doing. This one I want to kind of use for job level 25 ability. It has an incredibly low cost, which is very, very nice. So let's get that. There's the pre-buff before the attack happens, which is pretty cool. Do really like those. Getting a re-raise. Arise! Slime! Get a bird attack. Now let's do that surrounding ability. June will be fine. She is a tough girl. But let's take a quick look over here at June, and you can see roughly about how much damage it was capable of dealing there. June's still looking pretty tough overall, but you know, took a little bit of a lick in there. She'll be all right. She'll be fine. And a pretty good range, as you would expect. So here's the thing. He is not a 100 cost limited that Global got today. And that does definitely show. Just looking at the kits between Cherise and Summer Jaden, it's very, very clear that Summer Jaden is a 100 cost limited unit, where Cherise is a 70 cost unit. But that being said, Cherise can still surprise people as to how good she can. She is a long-range debuffer. She is a super low cost, which is always a consideration. People have already said, hey, combine her with Halloween Leela and put June in that kit, and that's a really strong team for limited time Guild Wars stuff. And that's great. Nice TMR also to boot on any ranged unit, not just, you know, single purpose wind kind of stuff here. But I do have to question the timing of this. Is it bait right before a huge, possibly new collaboration? Possibly not. Is Wind already too stacked? If you think about it, with the Glassy, June, Sadali, and potentially on Global now, either more or potentially, you know, Summer Jaden, there might just be too much competition for this to really be a unit that people would go way too far out of their way for a pity that is way too high for 70 cost units. 32k or like, I don't even remember on JP what it is right now. The thing is, it's at least 32k to pity her free. I just don't think it really adds up enough here if you don't get her cheap very quickly. She can always be an off-ban. And I do think that collaborations, the collaboration cost of what could be coming, it really won't hurt any JP player to wait till Friday and not bother with this banner at all. But I think in also the other consideration is if you're just going to be playing the ranged competition game, Ice is still going to have a great time here, because AoEs and whatnot won't protect her. And honestly, she has no survivability in her kit, which is fair. She is a ranged unit. She has extended range. But you look also at Alaya, who has like a range increase of 2 or whatnot. This unit is completely fair, and it just might not be really enough right now to be a consideration that you get this character. So yeah, I really like her for a lot of different points. I think she could be really useful. I just don't think that the cost is worth it here. But yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for Friday when we find out whether this was a good decision or not. See ya. Although there really isn't much of a penalty.